Welcome to You Are Your Name. I'm Daken Ariel, and I'm here with Marlowe Shearing. We are going to be discussing mental freedom. And question for today, Marlowe, is what drains our mental energies?
Last week, we were talking about mental individuality and being able to create a mind that can think. And we discussed that thinking is a creative process that is gained through the discipline of self, that it requires that quality measured by the month, day, and year of birth to have a channel to flow. And so that creative thinking process is done through using our minds to lift, to flow energies of life that are beyond feeling. And so the things that drain our energy are those qualities of irritation, impatience, people that even have habits of jingling the keys in their pockets. It shows an intensity of mind. And that very intensity is the feeling that is registering on the nervous system and subsequently draining that energy. And so it's interesting that mind, when it's lifted, has that directive ability to create the control over those feelings. And so you go into a store and there's a lineup, and you take a deep breath and you think, well, this will take a few extra minutes. And you redirect your thinking to use your mind and use that time to think constructively. But alternatively, if you allow feeling and the impatience and I shouldn't have stopped here and all the intensity again, then those energies are draining the energy of your mind. We build the energies in our mind through thinking. And that is, again, that creative process of looking objectively, using patience, making the decision not to react, making the decision to be still and to just observe and reflect in your thinking of the irritations and the situations that go on, and then make a judgment call with your mind, a decisive action of words, expression, or even removing yourself from a situation. And all those decisions of mind based on a thought of maintaining energy, it creates a sense of happiness, a sense of positivity, a sense of being in control rather than being done unto and reacting through feeling. It's subtle, and that quality of happiness that we discussed in the last episode, it's so important because it shows that mind then is directed to purpose. And our purpose is that link to that spiritual quality that's seated within us with that first breath. And that quality should be a pure expression of wisdom that becomes a part of life. And it becomes a part of life through our mind. Things that drain our mental energies again, it can be the smallest thing. It can be that we don't say anything, but just our mental attitude is negative and we're non-responsive in a mood. And that again shows that energy of the mind not being fully conscious, not making the decision, not looking objectively, not lifting up. And so those energies are built through conscious decision, through having standards of the way we want to live our life. And those standards are reflective of honesty and regard for others, the qualities of patience, as mentioned. And it's stellar because we're setting an example for other minds to look at that example and say, well, yes, I could be patient too. And so with that, then the mind is generating energies of life. If you look at a child and they have a temper tantrum and you are the person that's in charge that has to create the change in that child's mind, you know the energy that's expended. And yet that little one's mind has become embroiled in that emotional experience just because their feelings are not being recognized and they want or they need. And that mind that has to create the control knows the energy that then has to be expended. And that's the same with us. We can go along in life and it's our mood and our impatience and our time that's being wasted, our irritations. Or we can look at life as the opportunity to use our mind and use that time in our life for constructive thinking, for adding the energy of conscious awareness and the respect of others, the joy of living, and to look at life with a smile on our face, not becoming impatient or becoming involved in the small reactions.
You had a couple of phrases, discipline of self and the flowing energies beyond feelings. Can you relate those back to the mathematical principle? How do these concepts of disciplining the emotions relate to the positive and negative expression of mind?
When we take the life analysis training course, we learn about the pure qualities of the 1 to 9. And those are qualities of expression of energy in life. And those qualities are measurable and linked to mind. And so you see people that are really impatient or people that feel justified in what they have to express because it is the truth and they know it's the truth and therefore it has to be expressed. And so maybe we would measure that mind as a 685. And yet that same individual could be understanding that they won't be able to affect that change easily until they can grow in their expression to create that understanding with others. And so changing the name changes the quality of the thinking of that individual and lifts their mind to a bigger, broader perspective. So growing beyond self requires first that balanced name, the recognition and understanding of the principles of mathematics, and then using our mind to grow, to recognize the positive qualities of expression versus the self-expression. And so rather than impatience, it could become patience. And rather than a reaction of a mood, it could be a lifting to add energy through kindness and through that expression.
So the use of the word self there would be the negative expression of the qualities. If someone's living in self, they're living in the destructive qualities of intelligence from 1 to 9. And if they're more selfless, they're living in the positive expressions of the 1 to 9, which are a creative energy of mind. Would that be how you're using that term?
Yes. And so that selfless individual has a greater awareness beyond that immediate reaction to feeling. And you can look at when people yell at you, you feel that energy and you can have two choices, fight or flight. But there's a third choice. And that third choice is to take a deep breath, detach yourself from the feeling, lift your mind, look at it objectively, and recognize that if there's a solution here, that it's not going to be made through that emotional confrontation. And so the reaction to self or the expression of self becomes understandable when you realize that there's a choice. And in the philosophy, we teach that choice is the choice of expressing principle, which then in turn is that higher quality of that energy of mind that we teach through the mathematical principle, so that one can be belligerent or express individuality. The two can be passive and lazy, or it can become the dreamer and the person with the imagination to recognize that life can be better. And so all those qualities are expressed through a decision of mind and making the mind stop and think and add the energy to lift and make a conscious decision of expression.
One of the common drains is fear. People fear ill health, or they fear losing their job, or they fear the future, or they fear death. These are all emotional states. How does one overcome fear?
All the qualities of feeling are relative to a reaction of yourself. And so that fear can develop in ways where you have been judged or there's been a situation. And then you go back to that feeling. But that quality of fear can be overcome through gaining confidence. And that confidence has to come through the expression of mind. And it has to come through recognizing a principle of life that you would like to measure up to, recognizing that we're each works in progress, but to develop that confidence within yourself through making small steps. And fear is a challenge, but it is something that can be overcome through thinking and through that quality of having small successes and recognizing that those qualities that you feel are relative to something that is linked to the past or linked to an experience that you've had, linked to a book you've read, a movie you've seen, but you have to work through it.
So there's a function of first recognizing the fear and then recognizing how debilitating it can be. I remember during 9/11, where everyone was focused on watching the skyscrapers fall down, and it was being played over and over and over. And it created such a fear. People couldn't break that state of terror. It was interesting that if you just turned off the TV or turned off the radio and cut yourself off from the input of all that emotional energy coming through the media, then you could regain your composure and regain your equanimity. So often it's recognizing where these energies are coming from.
Yes, and through the media, the first time they put a war on TV and just movies even, and those qualities are technicolor, and it's like a dimension that this is real. And so it does shock the mind. And so by turning off that TV or turning your mind away from that media, then you can develop that individuality, which again is that ability for the mind to make its own decision of what we're going to allow our mind to think.
So Keplerians do balance their names. They do follow cycles. They follow a disciplined diet that gives them more vitality. But the understanding of breathing seems to be one of the keys towards creating mental freedom. But the challenge there is that if you just learn breathing without having a balanced name, then all you're doing is accentuating the lack of balance in your current names. So there's some benefit physically for breathing to create that relaxation, but you have to get to the basic truth in mind. It's creating through your name, and that you have to balance that before you build the energy of that mind. Otherwise, the breathing just accentuates the qualities that you're expressing.
Yes. And so the breathing has the potential to lift our mind from one dimension or one plane of energy to a greater energy, but only if the mind can absorb the energy and utilize it through the mind, which, as you've just expressed, then would need to be balanced. And that balanced name allows you to draw the greatest energy from that potential opportunity. And that's like fuel for the mind to lift from one plane to another. And we used to describe that as department stores where you take the elevator up, and each opportunity then is when the door opens, what is available on that level of thinking. And so there's many levels of thinking, but the qualities of fear and temper and all those extreme emotions is burning up energy, rather than that breathing would provide the opportunity of replacing or creating energy to make a better decision.
The fear and the negative expression would be like being in the basement levels. So we want to keep out of the basement. Here's a quote from Mr. Parker. The reason man is not progressing in life is that he is not being taught the constructive principles of life and is not being encouraged to sacrifice the immediate satisfaction of the senses for the unappreciated but much more valuable state of individuality, mental freedom, and spiritual attainment that results from application to the physical, mental, and spiritual laws. Man must seek the understanding of the laws of life under which he exists and must live in accordance with these laws, which will bring beauty, harmony, peace into reality, and thus man will find the true joy of living. So, relative to that quote, it discusses the laws of life. What would that encompass?
We know that we build the energy in the physical body through nutrition, through exercise, through keeping happy. And so all those principles are taught in the Keplerian philosophy as laws of life, governing our thinking, being aware of what we allow into our mind through news media, through books, through movies. And there are many laws that are taught, and it's all relative to refining that mind, which the word refinement in the Keplerian philosophy refers to disciplining feeling and creating thinking. And so the energies of applying the laws of life, of diet, breathing, and thinking is towards that opportunity of the mind, creating that individuality and that mental freedom to be in charge of their life, to have that decision-making ability, to be that creative mind.
That concludes our episode for today. Tune in next week for our final episode on mental freedom regarding what is universal thinking.
Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways we can help you. Number 1, the Balanced Name Recommendation Service. Join the thousands of others who have harmonized their names with their inner potential to improve their health, happiness, and success. Number 2, learn the principles of mental freedom. Participate in our online training program to gain the essential tools to create all the progressive changes you seek in your life. These proven truths will open up new perspectives and accelerate your attainment of health, happiness, and success. Number 3, let Kalex Solutions help you choose a balanced name for your business, because many business names are an impediment to one's overall business success.